Alright. This is the baby right there. This is a new advancement in this Silka setup. This is a pretty rad.
Instead of just clamping the frame.
Exactly. So normally we would clamp into the seat tube.
Yeah.
We're gonna run a dropper post on this. Thankfully, Stuart has been cool enough to get us this Silka bar. We bumped into them at Dirty Kanza, and Stuart likes Silka as far as the quality. Now I can manipulate this frame pretty easily, there's no danger in clamping to this as opposed to this is just straight rubber.
Right, and we're going to be messing with the seat tube anyway, and so we'll be doing a video on coating.
Yeah?
Yeah, doing a coating on.
Like
I thought about doing PPF, paint protection film, but I think I'm just gonna fly raw. A little more legit than my giant Anthem that I have.
Okay. I mean, the Anthem's a nice bike.
Yeah, I have an Anthem 29er 2.
Okay.
So, a $3,000 bike, $3,500 bike.
Yeah. An Anthem Advanced 29er 2.
Yeah.
There you go.
4-inch. So the suspension's actually going to be, travel-wise, will be the same as this. So what is the crown? I don't even know what that is.
A crown race is what the actual bearing is going to rest on.
Okay.
And run on. So basically, this blue ring it's just a seal.
Yeah.
But there's that gold ring underneath it.
Yeah.
And we need that to sit flush with the crown of the fork, which is this black upper piece of the fork.
Yeah.
And then the bearing will sit on top of that. I'll grab the bearing so you can see it.
Why wouldn't they just send that pre-installed? What's the purpose of sending it uninstalled?
They can control their labor dollars, perhaps, in-house. So the bearing sits on top of this, and this is what the bearing will run on, or it's the actual bearing race. And this will all sit inside of the frame.
Okay.
There's an upper version of that, but for this piece, we're gonna get a crown setting tool, which is fancy, or crown race setting tool, which is fancy for something that I'm gonna hit with a hammer. So it's basically just a fitting.
Yep.
That correlates with whatever size race I have.
Yep. That
and
receives
this big hunk of steel
Yep.
that I can then smash with a hammer, and that kind of sits in there. So it's one of those, we wait for the customer to not be looking, and then we hit their stuff with a hammer kind of thing. So I'm gonna be a little more gentle than I normally would be.
Yeah, do it. I know how this game is played. I'm used to bending stuff and modifying, and people think when you go to the BMW dealer that they have some like white gloves on. No, they're hammering stuff.
Yeah, so that's on then. If we went to remove it, we would have to use a puller, which would go in like a plane underneath, and then almost like a pulley remover.
Yep.
Press against the sear tube, and it'll, like a claw, lift that off of there. But at the end of the day, that's what it looks like when it's pressed on.
So do those wear?
I'm sorry?
Do those wear over time where you need to replace it?
They can collect dirt underneath. If your headset wears out, you purchase a new headset, which is the bearings, the whole assembly.
Yeah.
It'll come with a new one, and you just replace at that point.
I
You may want to pull it off. Okay, if you hear some creaking or any sort of noise, you can get some dirt, some sand in Florida.
That's why you need a puller.
And then wipe it down, put it back on. Some of these don't require so much force to put on. They're just like a split ring that slide down. Those become a little bit noisier, faster. The idea is basically that we just stage everything so that's kind of within arm's reach. And would you hold that for a second for me? Just like that. I just want to reset this.
So this won't have a full lockout. It'll just have a semi-lockout.
I feel old, so I don't use a lockout at all.
Yeah.
My body hurts too much.
Only for the road is when I would lock it out.
This has like a net carbon molding in here, so that we say an integrated headset, meaning that the cups are part of the frame right now. And this is just steel bearing on carbon fiber, reinforced carbon fiber, both on the top and the bottom.
This would need to be greased when you do the final?
No, these are just sealed bearings. This should be perfectly fine the way it is. Okay. We'll just drop some spacers on. And our stem, just to kind of hold things in place. So this is pretty much just a placeholder until we would set our torque value.
So you reserve cutting this for when we know
how long to cut it to.
So we put me on the bike kind of thing? Okay.
Exactly. It's kind of like we don't want to do double duty,
yeah,
so to speak. It's a loose fit in here. We're not going out riding it or anything like that, and we're not. I'm going to just check the torque value on this. And I'll just torque it down so that way it doesn't fall out while we continue the assembly.
There's nothing to that darn stem.
They're
short.
Yeah. It's probably just one piece of like billet, and then they just CNC. And
I think the stem on my Giant is like 3.5 inches long.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, you have an XC bike, and then this is an interesting. This is an interesting build.
It's like a hybrid trail cross country type.
Yeah,
which is what I wanted.
Let's put some. It has some grit on there, but I'm gonna put just some paste.
So this is like a carbon lube.
Yeah, paste that helps with grip for it. It's like a grit built into it.
Mm. Keep your handlebars from rotating when you're hard on them.
Yes.
Dang, this bike's gonna look cool.
Oh yeah.
Black with a little copper or whatever color that is, bronze.
So the Kashima coating should give you a better resistance to scratching or against scratching, and should allow you to. Should preserve the actual stanchion on the fork. I don't know if it makes the fork run faster, but it's typically healthier for the fork over time. So this will have a slightly different torque value at these 4 bolts than it does at the pinch bolts at the back.
It has a number on the darn.
It should on the back. It's 7.5. On the front, it's going to be 5. You know, when I started in this industry, we knew where torque wrench was in the shop, but nobody ever touched it.
You just did everything by feel.
It was, primarily it was before carbon fiber had made its appearances. So, nobody really relied on torque wrenches. Today, you really can't. You shouldn't be in it without it. Now we get to set up brakes. This is where the mess typically happens. So I'm assuming that this housing is cut to length for the frame, but I'm not like 1,000% positive on that. We'll find out in a little bit. And these are SRAM level TLM brakes. Could be wrong about that model name.
Yeah, I forget what they are.
They've changed brakes, changed names of their brakes relatively often. But it looks like it should be a system that allows us to use the...
it's weird how it doesn't click.
What's the name of their bleed system now? Bleeding Edge.
And then the cables are all internal routed.
Yes.
With the exception of the front caliper.
Exactly. Well, this is the only cable. The dropper post potentially as well, but this is pretty much, everything else is wireless.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. That's sick.
We can't have you forget about that. That's one of the coolest elements.
I paid a lot of money for that.
Absolutely.
That
Looks
feature.
like we're gonna enter in here. See if I can get this to uncoil.
I guess next we'll have wireless brakes.
I'm waiting. I think that's going to be the advancement, and I probably have this a little wrapped in correctly, so let me just reset this rear. They make this fairly easy to accomplish. It's just like a channel. This all fits down. I don't have to do any crazy.
You're not trying to catch it at the end. It's a tube that runs right there.
Heck yeah. Way nicer than they have been in the past. All right, so we've got this. That's a brake. This is going to be for the dropper. Make sure I get the mounts correct on here. That's for the dropper. Dropper, discrete clamp. So, okay. So, this one, I believe, now this is your decision to make. The Matchmaker Clamp, so the easiest solution for me is to use the Matchmaker Clamp here, which will be able to connect the control for the shifter right to here, as well as the brake. So the brake caliper, or the lever, will mount up right here, and then the controller or the shifter can go here. The other solution we have, this is personal preference, I can pull this Matchmaker Clamp off, and you can just use this and this discrete clamp for the shifter itself.
I'm so accustomed to regular bikes always have the brake and the shifter like on the same
clamp band. I'm
so used to that I probably
will do that. So I'm going to put this aside.
And is that what you would do? Or would you put it in a different position?
You can do it either way. We can always go back and redo anything. If you got on the bike and you didn't like the way it felt, and you wanted to make any kind of cockpit adjustments, that's always available to you just to make that change down the road.
Because the idea of putting it on the same clamp is I'm going to be brake, thumb, so it's already pre-positioned.
Yeah, if you find that you want more or less, if you wanted to have the brake lever farther away but the shifter closer, then we could split those two up and move the shifter closer to the grip and move the brake lever farther away.
I think I'm going to like it on the same.
It's you'll have the option regardless for you. So we'll start with it on the same, and then should you decide later that you'd like to make a change, we can do that easily. All right, so this is obviously we can go left or right with these. They're pretty easily flipped. So we just want to be mindful of personal preference. Right is rear for you. Is that would you say?
Right is rear, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes people have a little bit different desire.
Yeah, left is front for me. Yeah.
Nice. Those Aussies like Stewart
are backwards.
Their
toilet bowls flush the opposite way, so I'm used to that.
All right, so I'm not certain about the grips as far as which direction they're facing in, and I'm not sure about that flange. Typically, hardware would face back at us.
I think that would face.
Or ODI would be.
I don't know.
It's interesting. Huh.
I would think you'd want the nut or the Allen facing down, right?
Down. Typically we would see it like down and back.
Yeah.
And then, but that would be impossible here for us to achieve, unless they're not directional. We've got to the same grip. But if that was the case, interesting. I wonder if that's intended or unintentional. I just want to mock it up so that way I can get a relative idea of where we're placing the
lever.
Yeah.
So that is a hydraulic line, not a cable.
Correct. So we're going to cut and bleed just to mock it up. Just gonna turn, like kind of line it up and turn it. Your bars won't go beyond that. So we can come back this way and we'll know that we're gonna cut right about there. So let me grab a piece of tape and we'll mark it, cut it.
So you have to pull the pads out?
Yeah, so we're gonna remove the pads. This is all an attempt to avoid any sort of contamination. There's a C-clip that comes off. Because we're gonna cut the brake line, we're gonna bleed the brakes. We don't wanna expose the pads to any fluid or any sort of contamination. So we'll remove the pads from the caliper. It's kind of why we tuck the wheels up and away so that there's no risk to the rotors. It's a 2.5 mil Allen pulls this bolt from the caliper.
And the pads slide out.
And the pads will just slide out.
Oh, it has a little protective plastic thing in there anyway. But then how are you gonna bleed?
We're gonna put a block in.
Okay. But is that block the same size as the piston?
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a SRAM.
Or the same size as what the pads would be?
Yes. It's gonna be a SRAM specific block.
Aha. Okay, now it'll make sense. I was like, how the heck are you gonna bleed it? I think you'd have to put the wheel and the pads on, but that makes sense.
We'll come back and I'll cut it again. I just wanna give it a...
This is fun. There you go. Pop right out.
All right. Just have to think about it a little bit, huh?
Yep.
Brains over brawn.
Is there fluid in that line already?
Yes. And
Okay.
it's so it's hydraulic fluid. So now I'm gonna change my gloves one more time.
All right. So just take the dropper tube off so we can cut the jacket or the, what do you call this?
The housing for the
The housing for
dropper
the cable
cable?
housing. Yeah. So you cut this to length, and then push the cable back through, and then actually cut the cable to length.
Absolutely.
I see. And then if you made little minor adjustments to the seat, it'll just move this in or out
Yeah.
a few millimeters.
Yep. You should be able to use the majority of this dropper though without having too much issue. I'm just gonna make sure that we have enough. I don't have it secured.
I'm talking more height. Like if we, of our seat, if we end up here.
Yes, we just slide a little bit back through. And if we went too short, it's not a big deal. We can always come back out and just put a new cable, a new housing through it, or those are relatively inexpensive. Let's test this on the, we're gonna pull it down and test it on the ground. All right, I'm just gonna trim this cable, kind of cut it back, and then we should be okay to kind of sit on it and adjust out the your, like fine tune your trigger positions, etc. Check torque values. You can actually probably take it for a ride, and we can adjust the we'll adjust your front air suspension, and we'll go from there as far as seat height. Fitting, I need to have a way to put it into a trainer. I don't know if I have through actual adapters to put it into a trainer here today, but I'm sure I have a trainer. So let me, I'll check my car. Sometimes I keep them in my car. And typically these will have an air chart on the back here.
So I better not debadge that part then.
You can take it, these things are available online.
Oh yeah, I could always look it up. Good call. 114 based on what? My weight?
Yes.
And then just check these every third ride or something like that?
Roughly, depends on how long between those rides.
Okay.
It's good to keep a shock pump in your tool bag.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to be the one to shake the bad boy down, or do you want me to take it out for a ride real quick?
You might as well go.
Okay, in case anything falls apart.
Yeah. Just wondering about the brake. I just took it around the block, just wondering about this pull. Does it engage earlier?
Let's adjust it in here.
Gosh, there's a lot of adjustment.
Yeah. Let's try that, see if is that better or worse?
I think that's worse.
Think it's worse?
Like, I would want it to start engaging here, no?
Okay.
Because the brakes don't do anything until I get all the way in.
So that's the extreme on that.
That's just how these brakes work.
They'll, as the pads burn in further and further, meaning material transfer from the pad to the rotor. So I did about 15, 20 slow stops on it to have them transfer some of that material over. They'll get grabbier and grabbier, but there's not any sort of modulation adjustment.
All right, I'm just used to my other brakes are more.
What other brakes do you have?
I don't even know. But like my brakes engage like here.
Like an on-off switch more?
Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these will have
There's more play in it. All right,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'll just get used to it. It's not bad. So can this thing move that way?
this, we would move the entire lever or the entire brake lever over, or separate it from its.
Yeah, because this is not like I figure. A lot of times I'll be here because I'm scared,
Okay.
and so a lot of times I'm riding. You know, I'll ride like this, so I'm ready
Okay.
to go over the handlebars.
Let's take it off the Matchmaker mount.
And so I think I would want this shifter out. Because like I'm having I'm like shifting here
Okay. And you want the shifter closer here or on this side?
on this side, that side.
Okay.
Yeah, further away.
All right. Let me.
But the problem is,
No, we can make these changes. That's we have those the other mount here for it. These are easy changes to make.
yeah, the brake position feels really good.